Monday, November 1st, 2021, regular city council meeting. And please rise as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please call the roll.
Edwards.
Here.
Hasty.
Here.
Pasapatinos. Here. Houston. Here. Panzera.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
President Keeler.
Here.
Mayor Kern. Here. Director Dvorsky.
Here.
City Attorney Kuzan. Present. Director Miller.
Here.
All are present.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of proceedings for October 4th and October 18th. Do you have any recommendations?
Move to approve if there's no edits.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Moving on, comments from visitors. We have one thing. Oh, you would want to bring me your thing? First of all, we have Mr. Steve Reynolds of 1070 Virginia Avenue. If you could please come to the podium and keep your comments to 35 minutes.
Did you say the 35 minutes?
3 to
3 to
5
5.
minutes. 35 might be a little long.
I have to start my timer again. I'm often uncertain if I'm using the word ironic correctly, but I think in this case I am. It seems more than a bit ironic that council is presumably headed towards changing Council Rule 6, which requires resolutions to be read 3 times, but plans to do so by reading the proposed legislation only once. Irony aside, I'll ask again council to table any changes to Rule 6 until next year. The rationale for rushing legislation through just simply doesn't seem to outweigh the reasons for waiting until next year as part of a more comprehensive review of council rules. First and foremost, multiple readings obviously afford the public ample opportunity for input. One can only assume that when the current version of Rule 6 was written, that was a key consideration, as well it should have been. In addition to that, though, in addition to that important point, there are still some other reasons why council should wait on this legislation. With only 2 or 3 council meetings left in the calendar year, there seems very little need for such urgency. Showing the new council the courtesy of allowing them to set their own rules seems very reasonable to me. Also, one drawback to rushing through legislation is that errors are more likely to occur. Whether they're substantive or merely nagging typos or errors in editing, allowing legislation multiple readings can help catch problematic situations before they've been voted upon and before they can cause unnecessary headaches or confusion. Case in point, proposed Resolution 25, 2021 seems to have its own bit of confusion. Perhaps I'm missing something, but I don't quite understand why it is that the second sentence of Rule 6, paragraph B, would still need to make reference to resolutions if, in fact, suspending rules would no longer be necessary for voting on resolutions. Specifically, the sentence, "The vote to suspend the rules must be taken by roll call vote on each individual ordinance or resolution," et cetera, et cetera. Confuses me a tad bit. Perhaps the sponsor or city attorney can shine some light on why resolution remains in the proposed legislation. Regardless, the amount of time required to suspend the rules is literally less than a minute. The reasons to hold off on any changes to Rule 6 far outweigh the ostensible reasoning for pushing through the proposed legislation at this time. As such, I urge council to table the resolution until next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I appreciate your input. I would say you did participate in the way things have been done when you were council president.
Absolutely.
You have. I would also say that we are not voting on this tonight unless someone says otherwise.
Excellent.
This is something that's been in the works for 2 years, which is why I created the rules committee. And so while I understand you want it to be moved to the next committee, this is something that's been in the works for 2 years. And we can't just keep holding things forever. We can't. Stuff needs to move forward. And I appreciate your thoughts on this, so thank you.
I would hope 2 months wouldn't be forever. Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have Mr. Dan Skinner, 1446 Kings Avenue. Please come.
Thank you. Good to see everybody tonight. Thanks very much. I'm Dan Skinner. Thanks for this opportunity to make a brief public comment. It really is brief. I live at 1446 Haynes Avenue. Today is the first day of November, which also makes it the first day of a month widely recognized as National American Indian Heritage Month, so you may know. On October 10th, Indigenous Peoples Day, I sent an email addressed to Mike Patterson, Director of the Grandview Heights Parks and Recreation Department, and copied that email to this body as well. Since I'm not sure if you received it, I'd like to read it to you, and also I have copies of it tonight for everybody, as well as a graphic that may help. This is the email I sent. As today is Indigenous Peoples Day, I'm following up on my email of October 6, 2020. I appreciated your reply, which thanked me for bringing the issue I described below to your attention. More than a year after Grandview City Council passed Resolution 11/2020, declaring racism a public health crisis, and several months after the Cleveland baseball team acknowledged the inappropriateness and insensitivity of their use of the likeness of a Native American as their team identity, I again write to ask you to please remove the racist Native American imagery from our city's Pierce Field playground. The use of this imagery as a form of supposedly naturalistic homage is widely acknowledged to be disrespectful and racist. I note, for example, the context in which this imagery appears, with a stereotyped image of a Native American's face juxtaposed with a sequoia tree, just as a koala is paired with a eucalyptus tree. After I raised the issue last year, an elected official in Grandview suggested on Facebook that this was a way to quote-unquote honor Native Americans. But surely this can't be the case, as it cannot be claimed that we're also honoring the koala, the giraffe, and the toucan. At a minimum, there's a parallel being drawn between human beings on the one hand and non-human animals on the other. Such parallels have long, shameful histories that, as scholars have shown, cast Native Americans and other indigenous people as quote-unquote noble savages. Indigenous Peoples Day is a perfect opportunity to correct this mistake, which I believe was not made with ill intent. Native Americans who were violently expelled from the very land on which we are now privileged to live continue to experience widespread discrimination. This discrimination is enabled and facilitated by their dehumanization in American popular culture, which includes images like the one to which I call your attention. I note as well that Native Americans also face extraordinary health disparities that our children, the very children who play on that structure at Pierce, will hopefully never experience. These health disparities include mental health disparities that are related to how Native Americans are represented. I respectfully ask you to reflect on the inappropriateness of this imagery and take steps to remove it. I would also encourage you to issue a statement explaining why the city has done so. Taking this additional step would be a meaningful supplement to the year of racial justice learning called for in 11/2020, and it would demonstrate leadership. I'd be happy to provide you with additional context, resources, and anything else that may help you in this process, and I thank you for your service. And I just want to add, I was appreciative to Councilmember Houston for her thoughtful response supporting my request, copied to this body as well, and urging its action. But I was really disappointed that that was the only response that I received. And I come today to you to ask you for your attention and your consideration, and also maybe a response at some point. Thank you. And I have copies if anybody would like that. So,
Thank you, Mr.
and
Skinner.
I'll leave them on the table here.
I'm sorry, do you have any, is there any Native American resources that you have who have also joined this effort, or, I'm just curious.
No, I mean,
I'm a naive white woman. I don't know these things, right? And so I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing. Are there any Native American resources that have helped with this?
Sure. I mean, it's a conversation taking place around the country. I'd be happy, as you may know, I'm a health professional and I work in healthcare and education. This is something I've read a lot about and understand pretty well. I'm also not Native American, but this issue as a health issue is one pretty deeply tied to our nation's history. So I'm happy to do that. And in fact, in my email originally to the director, I offered any kind of support in, showing evidence around this. But also I will note that this is something, I spent a lot of time at that playground, or I used to, aged out of it a little bit. But kids notice this. And it's been something that kids have mentioned to me as well, especially with the World Series going on and a new discussion around these kinds of popular images. I just think it's low-hanging fruit for this city.
Absolutely. Can you tell me something about Sequoia?
Well, no, this is an unnamed Indian or Native American image on the playground. There's no name applied to it. It's linked up with a tree as though it's a kind of, they're a connection to the nature is the kind of theme of that playground.
So there is something on there that says that it was named for the Sequoia tribe, which is inaccurate, it was a person. But I am curious if you know anything about Sequoia?
Sequoia is a tree, right? So in this case,
Sequoia
this
is a person, so I was wondering if you knew anything.
is it?
about the
Is
person.
Sequoia a person? I don't know that.
It is. So when you sent me the email, like I actually downloaded a book about the person
Yep.
and who they were because I was really fascinated by that. So I was just wondering if you could tell me anything about him as a Native American, what he did.
Oh, no, I can't tell anything about that in particular. I'm just talking about the imagery and the way in which this kind of imagery is talked about in these kinds of public contexts.
Okay,
I don't think that's the point of it. I mean, as I said, there's animals and one human being. And the tree, I believe, it's right here, Sequoia tree. There's no name Sequoia under the actual Native American image.
So it
It's
wasn't
about
about
the tree.
Sequoia tree, it was about who it was named for. And so I took the time to look and see what that was, and I actually downloaded books and read books about Sequoia, who was the person who was a Native American who really helped teach so many Native Americans how to read and how to have a language. And I think that's something that's very important that should be celebrated. And why I hear what you're saying,
Mhm.
but I also think when we're discounting why the Sequoia tree was named what it was, that's not really celebrating the person. So I appreciate what you're saying, and I really do appreciate you bringing this to us. I also think it's very important that we understand who the tree was named for and why, and what the history is, and not just the history of Native Americans, but this specific person and why it was named Sequoia.
I'm glad to hear you're willing. I would have appreciated hearing that, and I would have enjoyed learning what you learned as well. So all I ask for is a conversation.
All right, I appreciate that conversation, and I appreciate you bringing it to our attention. I know I've done a lot of reading in the meantime, and so thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
Chair Killer, may I add something?
you may.
So a piece that Dan Skinner didn't bring up that I mentioned in the email response that I sent out, which I actually was not aware of, and I learned door knocking, and I can't remember the gentleman, but he's lived in the neighborhood for some time. Demara? Anyway. Thank you. He brought to my attention the fact that we actually have a history of the Adena people's burial mounds in our community is within the land of the Adena people, and we have a history of some of their burial mounds, and one of those was actually very close to the city hall. And so what I think would be really interesting would be to do some consultation, which I would be happy to help provide some of my own resources in the way of time to look into. Maybe the Ohio History Connection could help us, or other folks in the history realm, or the indigenous communities that we can find access to, groups in and around our community, to just understand that history a little bit more and actually pay some, do some commemoration of that history, which is local to our community. So I just wanted to add that and share that in case folks missed that in the email. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Daryl, we love you. Let's hear all about everything you do.
Oh, there you go. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. The service department's been pretty busy this summer. Quite a few projects are now winding down, but still some are very active. The Elmwood sidewalk going up the hill is moving along. They did pour the retaining wall shut today, which means the sidewalk and the curb work will finish here soon. That's been the holdup, trying to get that wall done. So we should see pavement on Elmwood and a couple other finished up spots around town that'll finish up our street program here in the next couple of weeks. So we're looking forward to finishing it up, but the rest of it's been taken care of. Goodell South, if you haven't had a chance to look at that, the new Swan Drive connection down to Twin Rivers. Twin Rivers Drive is open, but the access point from Swan Drive to Twin Rivers will stay closed for a while until they get the traffic signals in and some warning lights that go in for that. The only time it'll be open right now is when construction's using it, using flaggers out there, so it's safe. But those connections have been made. If you get a chance to take a look, there's a massive retaining wall that cuts down into Swan Drive. It's pretty impressive. The roadways have now been paved for Swan Drive and the extension of the yard and Bobcat. So you're seeing that project move ahead with sidewalk work and not far distance. You'll see landscaping and things going in along those roadways. So I know they're doing some brick work on sidewalks starting this week. So it's been an exciting project. A lot of utility delays. It's finally coming around. We're seeing some things completed down there, which looks nice. Block L is a project that My Homes is doing down in the yard. They now have really it's an alley is only the main part of it that went in behind where the houses are going to face. They're in. They're waiting on some utility approvals for coordination of water lines, and those houses the single-family homes will move on and be going up here soon. Leaf pickup is going to be a challenge this year. As you can see, the leaves have not turned well. They have not fallen. By this time of the year, we should be full bore, 2 trucks out all day long and overtime already, and it hasn't happened. We're sending trucks out, and they're what we call pile hopping. They're just going to go around town, pick up the piles over there, cleaning up sewer drains and doing the best they can for right now, but what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, they're going to drop. And we're going to be behind before we ever get started. So we will be doing overtime and doing our best to stay on top of that. But the guys will be working a little over each evening and working on the weekends as soon as that happens. And we've been lucky the last couple of years where they came down early and we were able to stay up with it without too much trouble. But this is not going to be that year. So just understand that we're going to do our best to try to keep up with the LEAF program this year, but it is going to be a challenge. We see that already. We'll be well close to Christmas, probably getting everything cleaned up this year. That's some of the just quick updates on a few of the projects. Anybody got any questions on anything else we got going on around town?
Oh, I do.
Me too.
So the leaf collection, are we assuming that it may go a little bit later than normal?
Yes.
Okay.
We will most likely be into Christmas, and if we have to go longer, we'll go longer, but we will most likely be close to Christmas at this point.
You guys are wonderful. Houston.
Yeah, I'd like to ask some questions related to water infrastructure. That would be okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I saw in the report, and that I know about the Elmwood project. So with that, is it going to be a street repavement, correct?
Yeah.
With the,
Elmwood, we did the street grade. We did do a water line replacement all the way
Okay.
up that hill
And
and
did that-
extended it down.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, we did extend the water line.
Okay.
It didn't go all the way down, we took it down further and replaced that line. There was an old 2-inch piece in there with serving a few of those houses. So now it's all cast iron metal pipe going all the way down.
For the main line.
Main line, yes,
Did
and services
we-
were
did the-
replaced.
We replaced the service lines?
Yes, we
across
replaced
the-
any service
okay.
lines that tied into that line.
What is the process whereby a resident can request a replacement of the public portion of their water line?
We
Or
currently,
checking it out to see if it needs to be replaced?
unless, we do not have a way other than digging one up to see what that line is. So at this time, the only time we get into that service line is when we do repairs or some projects that we're working on gets us into those lines. So a resident really can't request us to tell them what that line is unless we're already into a project for some reason we're uncovering. We don't go out and dig up individual lines to tell
Okay.
them what type of line is on the service line.
I had a neighbor recently who had their line checked and then replaced at the public part of the line. So I'm wondering if they actually could have gone directly to the city of Columbus to have, because we contract with the city of Columbus, as I understand, for some of that work, right? And I don't know the details of our contract, I haven't looked at it, but it was City of Columbus folks who were there. I was just unclear whether they made a direct request to the city
Was
of
that the one on
Columbus.
3rd Avenue?
This was on Lincoln between First and Third.
I don't know, Columbus normally would, I don't know why Columbus would have done that, that doesn't make sense to us, so we weren't aware of it. Columbus normally will not come in and do any service line work, that's
Okay.
our responsibility, so I'm not sure how.
Okay,
that
well, maybe we
came
can
up.
talk about that a little bit
Yeah, I don't
offline
know how it
then,
came
because
about.
I
I'm
can
aware.
assure you, yeah,
Yeah.
it was happening, because it was down the street from me.
Okay.
And then that's what piqued my curiosity to ask the question, because we talked a little bit about this. Can you remind me, just for residents down in our community, about what percentage would you say, if you're just estimating, I know we don't have exact records, but what percentage of our water service lines are composed, our public portion of the service lines are lead-based in our community?
I do not have that number. We have some lead maps that we have the plums put together at one time, but I
Okay.
do not have a percentage for you that I can quote.
What's your sense of the accuracy of those maps?
This is an inventory on the Columbus page.
Right. I'm curious if you all find those to be accurate from your assessment. I've looked at them, and my sense is they're not highly accurate maps. So I just wanted to get your sense of that.
What we have found is, in the areas that we have opened up, or in any of those maps, we have found additional lead lines that didn't show up on there.
That
As
did
an
not
overall,
show
I
up
can't
on there?
say that.
Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. That did
On the
not
projects
show-
we've gotten into where we did
Yeah.
replace the water line, we have found some additional lead lines that may not have been on that map.
Okay.
As an overall city, I can't tell you the accuracy of all, but in a couple instances, we did find a few more.
Okay, thank you. And then, would you remind me, just a couple more questions, Chair, if I may, President Keeler, excuse me. Have we applied for any of the state revolving loan funds through the Ohio EPA for water and for our water infrastructure? I know we did Department of Development funds recently,
Right.
but I wondered if we had done any of the Ohio EPA.
I don't know, off the top
Okay.
of my head, we've applied for several grants and loans.
Okay, Just-
Again, with lead lines though, we don't typically go out and just replace lead lines. What
Right.
we do is we have a larger project, and ancillary to that, as was just described on Elmwood, the service lines will be replaced.
yeah. I think, this is in my purview for my professional work that I do, so that's why I'm getting into some of the weeds here. I think there will be very likely additional funds influxing from the federal infrastructure dollars, maybe also from the ARPA dollars going into to kind of increase those already existing state revolving loan funds, which are squarely for water infrastructure. So just would encourage you all to take a look at that again, if you haven't recently. I think in the past we had one discussion about it. And then I know we also requested, I believe, was in one of the reports, some Department of Development funds for infrastructure, and I just wondered if there was any update, if we've heard anything back about that.
We have not.
Okay,
Thank you, I think
thank you. That's
a
all my
good,
questions. I appreciate it.
Good?
A good question, and thank you for answering all of our questions. If there's any additional questions, we'll follow up with anyone who has them, and we'll move on to council committee reports. Thank you so much, Director. You are dismissed unless you want to
Thank you.
stay for all the fun.
I'm good.
All right,
Thank you.
moving on to finance,
No report.
planning administration,
No report.
recreation services and public facilities.
No report.
We're so boring, safety.
I actually didn't have a meeting this month and no report also.
All right, economic development.
Our committee met just prior to this meeting to discuss Resolution 23-2021. We'll share more about that once it comes up on the agenda.
Thank you, rules and productivity.
No report.
Grandview Library.
Liaison,
Ms. Christina.
Oh, that's me still too.
Yeah.
No report, sorry.
Thank you, school. I have no report other than I hope everyone's enjoying their holiday due to voting. Moving on, chamber.
The November Chamber Luncheon is the 11th, and it's being held at the Amelita Marolo Barn in Upper Arlington. And of course, thank you to the Chamber for putting on the Candidates Forum that we had a couple weeks ago.
Thank you, planning commission.
Planning Commission had one case since we last met. It was a short-term rental application which was approved.
Thank you, Coda.
I alluded to this in my last report. CODA has just rolled out today their fair equity program where it's basically cashless. It's either via app or a smart card that you can get where based on your ridership, it's a way to cap like what we pay per month or per day, so you're not overcharged. Once you hit a certain level, it's capped and you can still ride.
Cool. Very good. Marcy.
So the last MORC meeting was on October 14th, the day before the MORC Summit on Sustainability, which I know some folks attended and I got to see there, like our Director of Planning. But if folks did miss that summit, several of the sessions are available online at morpc.org/summit. And then I also want to flag for folks, I sent this along earlier today, MORC recently provided their member communities with a return on investment figure for their membership. And I unfortunately won't be able to explain that to you tonight, how they came to that, but I did ask Eileen Luby to share that, and I have her response and actually like the whole, how they calculated it very specifically if anybody wants to see that. So the ROI for our community was $1,424 for every $1 invested in our dues. And then the next commission meeting will be on Wednesday, November 10th at 1:30 p.m. And it's normally Thursday, but it shifted to Wednesday because of the Veterans Day holiday.
Thank you, Destination Grandview.
No report. This is, with the meeting being the first day of the month, I usually get his report on the second or the third, so some months we miss the first meeting.
Sounds great. Sustainable 2050.
No report.
Traffic Advisory Group, no meeting, no report. Mayor's report.
Thank you, President. Madam President. Thanks for everybody who participated in Trick or Treat. We had a very successful event between police and fire and partnering with the library. Certainly nice to see everybody out and about, and appreciated the weather. The pumpkin toss will occur this weekend. Food waste drop-off is augmented for pumpkins, which will overflow the bins if we throw them in there. So we do have extra bins Friday through Sunday, 5 p.m. So get those jack-o'-lanterns out and please keep them out of the waste stream. Yard waste and leaf pickup, as was discussed, are ongoing. Again, when you're breaking your leaves out to the curb, don't put them in the road, and please keep them out of the storm drains. And we hope that it's a little more incremental, but it may be, probably all come down to the Thanksgiving. So we will get it done. There's a food drive going on. Our first responders are doing a food drive for that first community. So please stop by City Hall and drop off canned goods, personal items, etc. before Friday. Congratulations to Officer Josie Grayschel for receiving Sheriff Dallas Alden's Star Award for outstanding performance in law enforcement. We are proud of Officer Grayschel and all our officers. STAR stands for selflessness, teamwork, accountability, and respect. So thanks to all those who commit to those principles in our service workers and our law enforcement. Again, the Elmwood Hill Sidewalk is going in. It's quite an engineering feat, and I think anyone who does this job or runs for this office does develop a passion for infrastructure. Also engineering. I think a lot of these projects, as you might have noticed, are actually rather complex. We're a 100-year-old community, and it does take a fair amount of effort to do it, but we take pride in that. So I also want to mention the Twin Rivers Drive intersection with Swan Street, as well as the Mulford, my favorite, the Mulford sanitary storm sewer going through the sanitary line. That has now been, it's out to bid, and it will be out to bid Friday. And I'll just say a few words about this. We will be launching the city's first economic development strategic planning process later this year as part of our ARPA investment. We really did enjoy interviews and thank the council members who participated in that. More to come on that. We really look forward to engaging the business community and the public in this process. And very excited to announce Holiday in the Heights, Tuesday, December 7th. We will move our annual tree lighting and gathering with the Grandview Singers and the jazz band and all the other activities that occur down here, everybody's favorite iceless rink, up to Grandview Avenue. So it is going to be a fantastic time. Fire department's up at the North Pole talking to Santa right now. We think we're going to get a reindeer on loan. So it's going to be great. It's a Tuesday night, as it always is. We'll do the road closure earlier that day, 3 o'clock. The kids can go skate after school. So we really hope for good weather, and think it's going to be fabulous. And part of the idea, again, in the theme of economic recovery, is to bring local business downtown and engage our merchants. Not only from Grandview Avenue, but others. We have a lot of sponsors signing up, and probably need more by the time the event launches.
Mayor, can you clarify when you say it's been moved
Avenue. We will have a tree, probably possibly on a fire truck, we'll figure something out.
Okay, so,
The actual event is moving up to Grandview Avenue this year.
okay, thank you.
So, other than that, I want to thank staff for, again, putting together the budget books that were provided to you. A lot of work goes into this. We want to make it as clear to council and to the public as possible what we're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Director of Operations, Director Dvorsky.
Boy, I don't know how to keep up with, to follow that. Yes, there are a lot of things going on, and all the things the mayor highlighted. I also want to echo the hard work done by finance. I know what goes into that. And also the department heads for coming to the meetings with finance and the mayor and myself well prepared. So I totally concur that it's a well-crafted document and a lot of contemplative thought in it. So thank you, Director of Finance.
All right, thank you. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay, Director Miller.
Well, as the mayor and Director Dvorsky said, we spend a lot of time on the budget. We sit down with every department head at least twice, and we go through every line item. And then one time we make the mayor sit through it. And we go through everything, and we look at what we spent and what we think we need. So it is a very long process. We do like the budget book. We hope you like that format because we think we're sharing just a lot of information. And if you may not get to read every word, but if you do have things you're wondering about, it should be in there. I sent my October report. Our income tax, we're about right in line with last year, but our withholdings are starting to go down. So you'll see that the withholdings are at 11.3 million at the end of October, and in 2020 it was at 11.8. So we are starting to see some of that decline. Fortunately for us, net profits and individual payments are making up the difference. So we're kind of holding steady as of right now. The other item is the hotel tax. It hasn't rebounded quite as fast as we were hoping, so we're going to have to ask for reduced appropriations for the amount that's going to Destination Grandview. So that'll be an ordinance that'll be read, have a first reading tonight. They're aware of this. It's just coming in slightly lower, but we're hopeful that next year is going to be much better, and they are trending up.
Great, thank you. Director Coker.
I will highlight just a couple quick little things. One is on back on the Fairview project, we actually have the final plat recorded and the parcel number for the lot that will become a city park, so we're able to execute those last pieces of the puzzle there. Also, we have Ferris under contract now, and we spoke with them today about having a couple of opportunities for continued public weigh-in, as we had mentioned that we would in January, which will be when it will kind of slot into their design process for some of the final design components on the road. Regarding the new municipal building, we are continuing to work with that planning consultant and the various folks who are involved in the steering group. We are currently pretty close to getting the adjacency diagrams finished and kind of understanding how the building wants to work on the site, based on a lot of very pragmatic, programmatic drivers related to how police and fire kind of need to work and safety considerations, as well as traffic around the site here. And we are now more in the phase of doing cost estimating and kind of working towards an understanding not only of kind of base building costs, but also some alternate costs that we might want to consider, different ways to build the building. First cost versus life cycle cost is kind of analyses are going on now. We expect that report to be delivered hopefully by the end of November. When we talked to the cost estimating folks last week, they thought they would need about 3 weeks or so to get a first draft to us, and then we'll have any kind of review period. So we're getting very close to understanding what the cost might be, and would anticipate then kind of they've taken everything that we asked them for, and that's what they'll be estimating. It could well be, and it would be typical on a public project like this, to then go through a value engineering exercise to double check that what you're needing matches the capacity and short and long range concerns. So there'll be a period of that kind of review upcoming as well. And I think there was maybe one other thing. Well, let's see, the interview for economic development and strategic planning consultant is completed, as I think was mentioned, and kickoff meeting for that's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. We'll be queuing up involvement groupings, and I welcome anybody's ideas into things that we want to make sure and pay attention to or highlight. Feel free to shoot me an email kind of collecting all of this, and we'll see how much we can get done in the process that we have. And then just to let you know also, something that I think has been going on really well with Planning Commission and BZA is that we've gotten into kind of habit and a rhythm of inviting new commission members and board members in for an orientation and kind of helping them understand what the process is going to be and the resources that are available to them. So that's been going really well, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. Happy to answer any other questions.
Just a quick follow-up.
Councilmember Houston.
Thank you. So I heard that the interview process was completed. That means we have selected a firm for the economic development strategic planning?
We have.
Okay, but we're not ready to announce who it is?
We just had board control meeting.
Okay.
We don't have a press release ready yet.
Okay,
The
that's fine.
engagement is not signed, sealed, and delivered, if you will.
Okay, got it.
There have been selected. Yep.
Okay, great. I welcome the welcome to join the efforts if I have that opportunity. We'll see how tomorrow goes. But in case not, I'll just get on the record. One thing that I think would be really fantastic to consider through that would be, looking at how we can work to bring minority-owned businesses to the community. Perhaps you all have already talked about that, whether it be your incentives or other programs. I think it's an important opportunity for us to welcome people of color into our community. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, city attorney report.
I submitted my report and we can answer questions.
Any questions? Okay, moving on, old business item number 1.
Resolution 23-2021, a resolution accepting the recommendations of the Grandview Heights Tax Incentive Review Council of various City of Grandview Heights tax incentives.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards?
Yes, the Economic Development Committee met just before this meeting. Director Miller was able to share with us the details of all the city's existing incentives. All of those are meeting or exceeding their goals, and the committee recommended approval of the resolution.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Edwards.
Yes.
Hasty.
Yep.
Hatsafetinos.
Yes.
Houston.
Yes.
Panzera.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Resolution 23-2021 has been approved.
Thank you. Item old business item number 2.
Resolution 24-2021, a resolution to proclaim the City of Grandview Heights, Ohio City Council meetings for 2022.
Thank you. Councilmember Hatsafetinos, do your committee meet on this yet?
Not yet. We will do that at the next meeting.
We'll record this as a second reading. Moving on, old business item number 2B, I guess it is.
Ordinance 2021-23, an ordinance to consent to an adjustment to the City of Grandview Heights boundaries by accepting a transfer and dedication of the portion of West Third Avenue immediately north of the Grandview Heights High School, totaling 0.5 plus or minus acres from the City of Columbus.
Thank you, Councilmember Hatsafetinos. Your committee met.
We did meet prior to the last meeting and our committee recommends approval.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hasty.
Yep.
Hatsafetinos.
Yes.
Houston.
Yes.
Panzera.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Edwards.
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-23 has been approved.
Thank you. Old business item number 3.
Ordinance 2021-24, an ordinance to amend the zoning plan and map of the city of Grandview Heights by changing the zoning classification of the property described as lot number 1 on the Fairview Avenue rededication final plat as accepted via ordinance 2021-22 from neighborhood commercial C2 to parkland P.
Thank you. This is the third reading, however, I believe there's still a public hearing that will be happening in the next meeting, so I would move to table to our next meeting, which is November 15th. Is there a second? Move to table to a date certain.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Motion and second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hudson-Patinos,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yep.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-24 has been tabled until date certain of November 15th.
Thank you. Moving on to business, item number 1.
Resolution 25-2021, a resolution to amend the rules of council of the city of Grandview Heights, Ohio.
Thank you. Chair Hastinos, your Rules and Productivity Committee has met on this, or has met on the rules in general, correct?
We have several times this year, in fact, and we took extensive notes and made a lot of progress towards it. I was hopeful that we were going to be able to get a third work session together. We were unable to schedule that over the summer. However, we had gone through all of the rules prior to that. So I have, on my own time, have created some edits that I plan on presenting at a rules committee meeting before the next general meeting.
Thank you. I will assign that to Rules and Productivity, and we'll record that as first reading. Moving on to new business. All wonky. We'll say item number 3, even though it's number 2.
Resolution 26-2021, a resolution authorizing the city of Grandview Heights to pursue lease financing for the acquisition of a medic.
Thank you, Mary Kearns. Mayor Kearns, not Mary, sorry. You can be Mary too.
Thank you. The medic, the punchline here is that the supply chain is so disrupted that in order to get a medic in a year, we need to order it now and get into the lease. So that is what we are proposing here. It requires legislation to pursue this financing arrangement. And again, you probably saw it in the capital budget.
Thank you. We'll assign that to Finance and record that as the first reading. Moving on to new business item number 4.
Resolution 27-2021, a resolution to waive the provisions of section 529.07B3 of the codified ordinances for the inaugural Holiday in the Heights event on December 7th, 2021.
Thank you, Mayor Kearns. This looks like so much fun.
It gets more and more fun as we talk about it. As I mentioned, the event, the tree lighting is moving up to Grandview Avenue, and we are involving the business community and considering this to be part of our recovery and a tremendous opportunity for the business community and the residents to get together and celebrate. We're encouraging merchants to offer special holiday themed refreshments, items, what have you. So we're requesting, recommending the same open container suspension that we do for Grandview Hop and the same boundaries for that night, 5:30 to 8 p.m.
Thank you. Given that it's December 7th, are you requesting any suspension of the rules?
We request that it be passed before the 6th, so either tonight or in a month.
Thank you. Are there any motions to suspend rules?
Move to suspend.
Second.
Motion and second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Houston,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yep.
Hudson-Patinos,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes. Is there a motion for resolution 27-2021?
So,
Move to,
move to recommend
okay.
approval.
Okay. That's a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Panzera,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yes.
Katsipatinos,
Yes.
Houston,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Resolution 27-2021 has been approved.
Thank you. We look forward to a fun event on December 7th. Moving on, new business item number 5.
Ordinance 2021-25, an ordinance to make an annual appropriation for current expenses and other expenditures of the city of Grandview Heights, state of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Mayor Kern or Director Miller would you like to speak to it?
I will start off, and Director Miller will set me straight if I misstate something. With leave of the president or with council, I'd like to address both the operating and capital together. There's really not a whole lot I have to say about the capital, so I'll just give one presentation if that's okay. Thank you. Again, thanks to staff for putting together the books and for all the time that was spent bringing forward, putting their best foot forward, really trying to make the city its best, and bringing forward thoughtful, creative, really forward-looking progressive recommendations about operations and about what we need to do to move to the next level. Thematically, for an overview here, this is we've done our best here to bring forward, I think, reflective of the times we're in, a conservative and fiscally responsible budget. It's a balanced budget, it's a positive budget. It both preserves the general fund strategic reserve, the 105-day operating reserve pursuant to policy, as well as a cash balance reserve, which positions us to make what I would call a generational, probably dare say, 100-year investment in facility that is sorely needed, as well as infrastructure that, as opportunities come along that we may need to match or invest in, that will be positioned to do this in a strategic, thoughtful way. Overall revenue, under tab 1, you'll see that there is a modest increase projected for next year, putting us back to pre-pandemic levels, 17,969, and it's within 10 or 11,000 of 2019. So we are kind of moderately recovering, projected to recover. You all know there's some unknowns, pandemic, work from home impact, economic recovery, questions about where things are going, commercial office challenges, but also reasons to be optimistic that are balancing those factors out. Really no reason to panic. As net profits are up, some of those declines are offset by increases in individuals and net profits. And so that we also notice there's a constant churn in the type of business mix we have in town. It's sort of like a roller coaster. One day you think, oh no, this business has outgrown us, they're leaving, or they're moving their headquarters, and then the next day you find that you really offset it with something else. So we're very pleased about that, and again, are being conservative with the approach here. The other kind of big picture comment I want to make is that really, as I consider this, we really look forward to this economic development strategy plan. We want to develop the vision and continue to diversify and really enhance our opportunities, enhance our existing assets and attract new businesses, and really have it as much of a balanced leverage strategy as we can, and have a vision for it as we kind of move to the next phase, and again, whatever is beyond the pandemic. The second point I want to make is that, as you all know, my administration prioritizes high-quality service and providing the best possible service within our means and within our capacity. And in order to do that, we are continuing to very incrementally enhance our capacity internally to get better service and meet modern expectations. The worlds have changed, and there's really nothing more emblematic of this than the technology department. So what we're doing is adding a little more bench strength in several departments, as we have done in the last year, and as finances allow. I think every single department head would like to do this, and almost every one of them brought forward recommendations along these lines. They can't all be accommodated at once, but in this year's budget, just kind of by way of example, we are creating the IT specialist position that was discussed, I think it's September. Parks and Recreation, we're restructuring a bit to have a little bit of a secondary leadership structure. You have the department head, and then really the two divisions, Parks and Recreation, both of which are important and complementary to each other, but really to have the best staff and to steward our assets the best we can and really to keep providing the best programming we can. We feel it's important to provide a career path and provide a little depth and ability to delegate. Parks and Rec in particular did a fantastic job. Well, everybody did a great job during the pandemic, but their operations really had to be modified. And they do a lot with part-time staff, and that gets really challenging. I think we were talking today about how, you know, we're so small that the city is hardly ever fully staffed because life happens. You have vacations, people have babies, you know, sicknesses, those sorts of things. So other examples that you're aware of actually are planning and administration. We've got a full stable of interns. We're recommending that again next year, as well as the fire assistant chief. That one's revenue neutral. Also, service and parks maintenance, we're adding crew leaders, and those are either revenue neutral or very minimal impact, again, to provide a little bit of depth and bench strength and ability to delegate and manage the work. Moving on to capitals, again, we're preserving the strategic reserve, preserving the cash balance, and we spent a lot of time identifying and quantifying projects that we would like to do and prioritizing those. So we want to position ourselves to capitalize on those opportunities as they arise, what we call shovel-ready projects. The street program, this year, $500,000 in the street program per se, but it's really more like an alley program. We did, many of you have brought alley observations or complaints our way, and we're taking those seriously. We reviewed the map. There's a map just like there is for streets, for alleys, for the pavement condition, and most of them are not in great condition, fair or below average condition. So we're doing a major push on alleys. That's actually going to change things a little bit with our contractors because it's concrete as opposed to asphalt, so that will be interesting. But we want to get them at least caught up and bring them up. As mentioned, you know, we have a lot of needs, and if we are able to find the grants and if the federal government comes through, et cetera, we will definitely be in a position to do more. And the fire engine replacement was already mentioned. Those are the highlights I have for you. I encourage you to, you know, look through the book and, you know, let the chair know what detail you would like to hear, if any. To shift gears for a moment, though, coming back to the pandemic and economic recovery, we've made it this far. It's been a difficult 2 years. We are very blessed to have dedicated, hardworking staff, very smart people working for us. And I guess I just feel confident we have survived and we're on our way. We're well on our way to recovery. The ARPA funds are there to help us with this. And so we remain committed to using them for that as we launch into the next phase and recover and, again, really develop good vision and planning to take it ourselves to the next level. That is what I have at way of presentation. It's however council wants to proceed with evaluating the ordinance.
Thank you. We will record that as a first reading and assign that to finance, and I would encourage a time for any of the annual appropriations, finding a time that council members can attend if so wanted. We'll record that as a first reading.
I think we also have to set a public hearing date for the budget.
And we'll set a public hearing date then.
Do we need to set a public hearing?
That's the tax budget.
Oh, we
Tax did that this year.
That's right, we set in July.
So, okay. Moving on to the next new item is
Ordinance 2021-26, an ordinance to make appropriations to various departments within the city of Grandview Heights municipal government to purchase equipment and make capital improvements in 2022.
Thank you. I believe Mayor Kearns already spoke to this, so we record that as a first reading and assign that to finance. Moving on to the next new item.
Ordinance 2021-27, an ordinance to approve reduced appropriations during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Director Miller. I believe you already briefly spoke to this. Is there anything you wish to add?
No, this is just a reduction of $10,000 for the Convention and Visitors Bureau Fund. The revised code doesn't allow us to appropriate more than we have in the account, so we have to reduce those appropriations. So it's just kind of a housekeeping item.
All right, thank you. We'll assign that to finance with all the other things. Moving on to new business item number 8.
Ordinance 2021-28, an ordinance to establish rates of compensation and benefits for certain employees of the city of Grandview Heights, Ohio, and declaring it an emergency.
Thank you. I believe Mayor Kearns already spoke to this as well, so you will record that as the first reading and assign it to finance. Is there any other business?
May I ask one quick question, just in case I'm not able, hopefully I'll be able to go to that finance meeting. I think there's a special projects coordinator employee. Are you able to speak a little bit about that right this
On
moment?
your what page?
It's, oh gosh, there's not page numbers, are there?
I think they're
It's
talking
at
about.
the bottom of the first table.
I don't believe there is anything funded in the budget this year. And we can talk more about this at committee, but as you know, the salary ordinance is really, it's what we do the third year when we're not negotiating with the two bargaining units, to establish a 3-year pay band. And really, look at what positions exist in the city. There's a lot of things in there that aren't necessarily filled now, or, maybe, yeah, so, and Director Dvorsky can maybe help me a bit with this, but I believe we identified a need with all of these projects we have going on, particularly the municipal building, which takes a lot of time and dedication by a lot of different departments. So it's just perhaps add capacity in the future with a project employee. We haven't really identified, again, in the budget, a position that it will be anticipated this year, but it may be that we will.
Okay.
And it really just gives us more flexibility. We can't hire anyone that doesn't have a defined job, so it really was a way to add some flexibility and anticipating just different types of needs.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, no other business comments from council members. I would just say thank you to everyone who's running. Good luck to all the candidates tomorrow, both incumbents and new folks, and we wish you all the best of luck and the best for Grandview Heights. Please go out and vote tomorrow. And that's it. Are there any other comments from council members?
Yeah, I'd reiterate that, please go out and vote. Just a couple things regarding finance committee meetings coming up, as we just went over, with the budget in general and capital, as well as, a couple other finance committee, items of business. So I know last year we did 2 finance meetings on the budget, and, so probably, unfortunately, probably want to schedule a committee meeting for those two budgets sometime on a non-council meeting. And then, because I know planning administration wants to meet for an item or 2, I think, and then we have these smaller finance committee meetings, so I'll probably schedule those before our next meeting, and sometime potentially in the next week. Keep that in mind, council or committee members, and I think, other members may want to attend, so I'll get together with Director Miller, and then any feedback I can get from committee members and other members if they want to attend, we'll get going on that.
Can I clarify, because I got confused there. You're thinking non-council Mondays or
Right.
November 15th before council?
No, I mean, like the other smaller finance ordinances and the resolution for that, but like probably a non-council meeting, or,
For budget talks?
yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Have a little bit more time.
Right.
All right, anyone else?
Real quick,
Yes.
again, good luck to everybody tomorrow. I want to say, coming back on, this is the 4th campaign that I've had, I think. That's what it is, besides the ones that I've worked on. And other than a few questions, general questions about political party affiliation, which I don't think has much of a place here, but it has been an incredibly positive experience. I mean, it's so positive that, like I said, this is the 4th time I've done this. This is even more positive than before. We're coming out of COVID. I was impressed. I really enjoyed getting out and talking to hundreds and hundreds of residents, many of whom I've spoken to before and some that I haven't. But the overall message that I received was that they're happy with the services the city provides. It's been really an honor for me, regardless of what happens tomorrow, to be asked to come back for 2 more years. It's been 10 years for me. Serving this administration, serving with this group has been wonderful, so I thank you guys for the opportunity. Looking back on it, even if you hadn't done it, I probably would have ran anyways. But it's such a, Councilman Panzera and I were talking, and I was having a bad day one day, and he says, you know what, man, if you just get up and go knock on doors, you're gonna feel awesome after you do it. And I thought he was full, you know what, and he surely was not. So, it was awesome to get out and do that. I think first time for everything, first time he's ever been right, but, no, it was amazing. I was actually knocking on doors on the street that I was born on today, and it was a really cool experience. The last house I had, I'll never forget. It was just an incredibly positive, experience, so I appreciate the opportunity, and good luck tomorrow. Go vote, no matter what, so that's all I got to say.
Thank you for that insight. We appreciate it. With that, we will move into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 121.22G1 to consider appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of public employee or official. We will take a 5-minute recess and reconvene. We'll just make it
Point of
easy.
order, do we need a motion to enter now?
So moved.
No, it's a recess. You need to take a recess and then.
We need to take recess till
And then motion
8:10.
after.
Is there a motion to move into executive session at 8:10?
So moved. So second.
Second.
Motion second, please, clerk, please call the roll.
Smith,
Yes.
Edwards,
Yes.
Hasty,
Yep.
Pasapatina.
Yeah.
Houston,
Yes.
Panzera,
Yes.
President Keeler.
Yes.
Council will move into executive session at 8:10.
Thank you, we are in recess till 8:10.